Sam, you know, all of these different types of fishing have their own vocabulary, actually. And I know new guys who get into this are intimidated. So this is a basic terminology lesson about the jigs we use for bluefin tuna. Take it away.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason we want to kind of like sort this out a little bit is, you know, guys come in and they're like, okay, I got booked a trip next week, and you know, it's a 1.5 day trip. I've been busy at work. I haven't been able to get my gear together. You know, what do I need? And my first question is, well, what do you have? Maybe you already have it. And sometimes guys have a hard time, you know, telling me what they have, because sometimes the terminology gets a little bit mixed up. And so they'll tell me they have something when really maybe it's kind of called that, but it's not really that. And so what I want to do is kind of just clear up a few little things that makes it easier whenever you're getting ready to see if you have everything.
Basic vocabulary lesson.
Vocabulary.
Awesome.
So, when we first started fishing for these tuna vertically, we were using jigs that were a flat fall style jig. And the reason we called it a flat fall jig was because Shimano had a jig that was called a flat fall, and it was a teardrop rear weighted jig, something where it's skinny on one end and kind of fat on the other, or fat somewhere here. And it's called a flat fall jig from Shimano. This actually has to be a tatty jig, a very good jig. But as you can see, it's shorter and fatter. This here is kind of what's been more popular the last couple of years. It's called a knife jig. So when somebody, a lot of times guys would say, well, I got a whole bunch of flat fall jigs, and they actually have these. And sometimes they'll say, I have a bunch of knife jigs, and they actually have these. So you want to make sure we're talking about each one. And why you would want to know that is that there are times where this jig getting down faster is the key. So you got to have knife jigs, and then sometimes staying in the zone longer is the key. So you got to have flat fall jigs. So there's the difference, and there are two different kinds of jigs. They're not the same one. So that's the first one that I get a lot of questions on. And then here's a couple other ones here I'll show you. The Daiwa SK jig, kind of been a hot jig here lately. And this is actually the Shimano jig. They're actually not that different, but as you can see, there is a little bit of difference to them. And obviously this one being longer and more slender is gonna just sink faster and get to the zone in a different manner. So that being the knife jig style, this is a flat fall style. Now obviously within that, there's a ton of jigs. If you look on the different websites and stuff, there's a ton of jigs for bluefin, and some of them might be kind of an in-betweener. What, you know, so I know this doesn't really solve every single, you know, question out there, but by and large, those are the two style of jigs. The next one's going to be a Colt sniper style jig. So this is actually the Shimano Colt sniper. We actually changed the hook on that, replaced it with a 2.0 owner treble.
Is that necessary? Obviously you seem to think it is, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, with this kind of fishing, we've had such a variety and of sizes of fish. So even though most days are fish under 100 pounds, let's call it like a 30 to 60 pound fish, probably be okay with the stock hooks. But, you know, invariably there's always going to be the day where you hook that 120, 150 pounder and you're fishing the right size line and a big drag, you'll straighten out those hooks.
Yeah.
So it's probably better just to change them all. That way you're not having to change it on the fly. You just change them when you buy them and you're good to go. So that's the Colt sniper style jig. So it's a type of jig that's been out for a long time. There's a lot of different kinds of them. Ahi makes them. I think we showed them in the one video that we did with Promar. Also, Daiwa makes the Zakana jig. The Zakana is actually pretty nice. They have a lot more colors. It's a really nice product. And I'm sure there's a few others out there, but we used to know them as Megabaits, Point Wilson darts. They've been around forever.
Yeah.
But currently, if somebody says, you know, do you have some Colt snipers, they're talking about a jig that's like this.
That's the latest iteration.
Yeah, that's the one there.
All right.
The next one is going to be on some of the accessories for them. When we talk about changing the hooks, we're talking about assist hooks. There's like these double ones here and single ones. But pretty much on every jig that's out there, that's available, that works really good, you want to change the hooks on. And as far
Why is that? Why don't they come equipped like the way you're talking about?
Well,
you have any idea?
Yeah. So primarily that's because these jigs really aren't made to catch a 200-pound tuna.
Okay.
You know, so when Daiwa designed them and Shimano designed them, that's not what they wanted them for.
Gotcha.
Even though we're using them for that, and so they're really more designed for reef fish. You know, actually mostly in the Florida, you know, market, Texas market, those areas there where they have a lot of reefs and those oil rigs and things like that. They're catching nice fish, but they're maybe like in the 5 to 25 pound
Yeah,
range,
right.
you know.
And now we're
catching
jumping up to
250
100,
pound fish.
250 pounds. Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense for them to change all of their jigs for us.
Correct.
And we're only, you know, a small part of the market.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to change them. That's those guys there.
All right, makes sense.
Yep. And then these actually are the treble hooks that we're using here from Owner. And that's for the Colt Sniper style jigs or Zakana jigs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one too is when we talk about fishing, you know, we're using Spectra, so you got to have a leader of some sort. So I ask a lot of guys too, you know, what kind of leader do you have? When we're talking about the big knife jigs and the flat fall style jigs, what we call it is a bite leader. And the reason it's a bite leader is because the tuna will be pretty much having the jig in their mouth and they're going to be biting on your leader.
Yeah.
And so it isn't so much that you need it for pulling strength. This is 200 pound here. You're not going to break the 200 pound. But if you happen to hook a big one, you know, you're on them for 3 hours or whatever, and the chafing of the teeth, eventually they can bite through it if you didn't have something like this.
Yes.
So if you're fishing 60 pound test or something like that, straight to your jig, you know, after half an hour, that 60 pound test might be 25 pound test,
Yeah.
you know, because you lost a lot of material. So with the 200 pound seems to be about the right size to where, you know, we really haven't seen any instance of a fish biting through this. So it's called the bite leader. So that's pretty much it. It's kind of short and simple, but I want to make sure when we go through this here is to let people know when we're trying to help you out what we mean by all this terminology.
I think this is a great video because there are people who are a little intimidated. I ran into a guy the other day and he said, you know, I don't even know what half of these words mean. So for the guys that are into it, a little refresher for you. I know a lot of you guys already know this stuff, but for you new guys, welcome into the greatest sport you could ever get involved in. And now you had your little vocabulary lesson for the day.
You got it.
Thank you so much, Sam.
All right, Phil.